Hey guys, welcome back. Ever fantasized about sleeping in a medieval castle? You know, stone towers, velvet canopies, a roaring fire, maybe a goblet of mead in hand, while moonlight filters through stained glass. Yeah, you wouldn't last a single night. Because castles weren't designed for comfort. They were designed for war, weather, and making sure nobody pooped where they weren't supposed to, which, spoiler alert, still happened. Often. Tonight we're peeling back the chainmail of myth and stepping into the stone-cold reality of medieval castle life. You won't find princesses in silk gowns here, just drafty halls, bedbug thrones, and a chamber pot that may or may not have already been used by Sir Reginald and his questionable diet. So get cosy, maybe light a candle, maybe don't, and prepare for the least restful night of your life. Because once that portcullis drops, there's no getting out. And if you survive till morning without trench foot or ghost-induced insomnia, well, there's more where that came from. Hit subscribe, and let's keep ruining history, one sleepless century at a time. So, you've arrived. Congratulations. You're standing at the gates of a real medieval castle, not the cute kind from theme parks or fairy tales, but the kind that smells like damp fur, despair, and about 7 centuries of unresolved trauma. It's winter. Of course it's winter. The sun has disappeared behind a curtain of grey clouds that look like they were personally stitched by a depressed monk, and the air hits your face like a wet burlap sack full of disappointment. The gates themselves are massive, carved wood reinforced with iron bands, flanked by towers that scream, "Trespassers will be shot with arrows, then judged by God." You approach with the naive optimism of someone who's seen too many fantasy films. You expect maybe a flourish of trumpets, a roaring hearth, perhaps a stable boy to take your imaginary horse. Instead, the portcullis groans open with the sound of dying metal and worse hospitality. You're greeted by a guard who looks like he's made entirely of gristle and regional resentment. He eyes you the way someone might glance at a slug on their bread. His armour is rusted, his breath is 90% onions, and his welcome speech consists of one grunt and a hacking cough that could fell a peasant. This man does not care about your backstory. He cares that it's raining, his boots are wet, and he's been standing in mud since before breakfast. You step inside, expecting grandeur. You get rocks, cold, uneven, moss-slicked stone in every direction. The courtyard smells like a failed soup experiment. A combination of horse, smoke, urine, and something sweetly rotting that might once have been food or a relative. There's no music, no festivity, just the clanging of a blacksmith beating iron into submission, and the sound of livestock expressing their deep dissatisfaction with existence. The walls are high, the windows are arrow slits, and the closest thing to a view is a pile of manure slowly steaming under a frostbitten sky. This place was not built for comfort. It was built to survive siege warfare, starvation, and awkward family power struggles. It is a giant stone anxiety machine with a moat. Inside, it somehow gets worse. The castle interior is darker than a confession booth during plague season. Lighting is provided by torches, which sputter against damp stone walls, producing more smoke than actual light. Everything flickers. Everything drips. The air is thick with soot, and the smell of burning tallow mixes with mildew and that unmistakable tang of unwashed humanity. Your boots, assuming you have any, are already soaked. The floor is covered in straw, not for coziness, but to soak up the fluids. You try not to ask what fluids. Your nose doesn't need the details. You can hear things scuttling in the rafters. Rats? Probably. Ghosts? Also probably. And that squelching sound underfoot? Don't think about it. Just keep walking. You pass a servant who's been alive for 40 years and looks like a fossilized loaf of rye bread. She doesn't acknowledge you. Her soul left this place 3 lords ago. Further down the corridor, 2 dogs are fighting over what you sincerely hope is a ham bone. No one intervenes. This is just what happens between mealtimes. You're ushered toward what the guard calls your room, which is generous language for a small, windowless box with a bed that appears to be made from medieval IKEA scraps and whatever the last guest didn't take with them. The mattress is straw, lumpy, and wet in exactly the kind of way that inspires long-term emotional damage. A single blanket lies on top, woolen, grey, and possibly sentient. You take a breath, instantly regret it, and sit down. The straw shifts with a noise that's half creak, half squeal. Something inside moves. You pretend it didn't. You look up. The ceiling weeps from a leak in the roof. The fire in the hearth is dead. There's a log nearby, but no matches. You realise belatedly that fire-making is a skill, not a feature. In the distance, someone is yelling. It's hard to tell if it's drunken merriment or the beginning of a minor uprising. Either way, the walls are too thick to let in warmth, but thin enough to carry echoes of every scream, groan, and kitchen-related injury. You're cold. You're tired. You're 99% sure that goblet in the corner is a chamber pot. You begin to notice that the castle has its own soundtrack, a kind of ambient dread. Doors creak even when no one touches them. Wind howls through holes you can't see. Chains rattle in basements you're not allowed to ask about. Every step you take sends a puff of dust up from the stone. Your own breathing starts to sound accusatory. You tell yourself this is still better than sleeping in a ditch. Then you remember the ditch didn't have a 4-hour sermon and a tax on chimney smoke. A servant walks by carrying a bucket of something brown. You don't ask. She doesn't explain. It sloshes ominously. The guard returns and tells you not to wander at night. When you ask why, he just looks at you and says, "Because people go missing." Then he walks off whistling something that sounds like the funeral dirge for your sense of safety. The temperature is dropping. You pull the blanket over you. It doesn't help. Your breath fogs in the air. Your feet have gone numb. You close your eyes, but the smell keeps them open. Outside, an owl hoots. Inside, something drips. This is not the medieval fantasy you were promised. There are no candlelit banquets, no velvet gowns, no noble stewards offering hot soup. There's just a castle. Cold, wet, alive with things you can't see and people you don't trust. You lie back on your bug-riddled straw bed, staring into the darkness, and wonder how anyone ever thought this was the pinnacle of civilization. And just think, you haven't even used the bathroom yet. You've stepped into the castle. You're cold, itchy, emotionally betrayed, and you haven't even met the dining room yet. Good news, it's time for your first proper meal. Bad news, it's served in a hall that smells like a burned goat and a disappointment convention. Let's eat. It's morning now. Technically. A sliver of grey light has squeezed through the arrow slit and landed somewhere near your straw mattress, which now smells even more strongly of wet goat and broken dreams. Your joints ache, your breath fogs, and you've slept exactly 0 hours. But don't worry, it's time for breakfast. And where do all great medieval mornings begin? That's right, the Great Hall, a name that overpromises so hard it should be illegal. You shuffle your way down the corridor, half frozen, half dazed, fully dreading. The scent hits you first, not fresh bread or sizzling bacon like your traitorous imagination hoped for, but the ghost of overboiled cabbage, stale beer, wet dog, and wood smoke. Heavy on the wood smoke. In fact, the entire hall is filled with it. There is a fire, yes, but it's doing less crackling warmly and more belching black despair into the rafters. You take a step forward and disappear into what can only be described as a medieval fog machine powered by damp logs and hopelessness. The room opens up before you. Tall ceilings, timber beams, stone walls darkened with centuries of soot, and one massive fireplace doing its best to poison everyone slowly. The smoke doesn't rise. It hovers. It curls around your face like a sad ghost, looking for a second chance. Your eyes water. Your lungs protest. You cough discreetly and immediately regret breathing. This is the social centre of castle life, the beating, hacking, wheezing heart of the stronghold. And it's bleak. Long wooden tables line the room, their surfaces sticky with ale, stew, and at least one bodily fluid you can't identify. The benches creak ominously, with the weight of peasants, squires, minor nobles, and one large man who appears to be sleeping directly on a roasted parsnip. Conversations hum in the air, low murmurs of gossip, throat-clearing, pig jokes, and a story someone's told 14 times, but still finds hilarious. There's food, technically. Stew sloshes in wooden bowls with the consistency of wet cement and the colour of mud that's been emotionally compromised. Bread is passed around in hunks that could easily double as bludgeoning weapons. A wheel of cheese lurks on the edge of a sideboard, like it's planning something violent. There's meat, if you're lucky, and if not, there's meat-shaped objects. The serving staff move like ghosts, fast, silent, and dead behind the eyes. One of them ladles a scoop of the grey stew into your bowl, without making eye contact. It splashes. A chunk of something unidentifiable floats to the top and stares at you. You stare back. No one wins. You sit. The bench is hard, cold, and tilted just enough to make you think you're slowly sliding into some kind of trap door. The person next to you sneezes into their ale. No one reacts. Another picks their teeth with what might be a chicken bone or a tiny dagger. Across from you, a child eats something while maintaining direct eye contact. You don't ask what. You don't ask why. Overhead, the rafters echo with the soft scratch of rats. One scurries along a beam, bold as anything, drops something, and keeps going. Someone nearby chuckles and mutters, "Good luck, Gerald," which is either the rat's name or a warning to you. The Lord enters with minimal fanfare and maximum judgment. He's wearing furs, a scowl, and a massive belt buckle that looks like it could summon a minor god. Everyone bows or grunts or nods respectfully, the medieval equivalent of liking your boss's post, but with more sweating. He sits on a slightly taller chair at the head of the room, eats from a nicer bowl, and drinks from a goblet that was probably stolen during a war no one talks about. A servant fans away the smoke around him, while everyone else breathes through their sleeves. You're expected to eat. So you do. The stew is warm. That's its best feature. Otherwise it tastes like boiled indecision. It's mostly root vegetables, heavily salted to preserve the illusion of flavour, and thickened with something that might be flour or might be floor sweepings. The bread is dense enough to cause minor dental injury, and the ale is flat, but blessedly numbing. Conversations roll on. Stories of last night's chicken theft, rumours of plague in a neighbouring village, heated debates about whether it was a wolf or just Agnes's unusually hairy dog. The laughter is coarse, full of teeth and missing morals. Someone belches and blames the stew. Someone else takes offence. A third person takes the opportunity to snatch their bread. You notice something important. The heat from the fire? It doesn't reach you. It dies somewhere in the middle of the room, like all hope. The closer you are to the hearth, the warmer you are, which is why the nobles sit there, basking in comfort and status, while everyone else freezes at the edges like human popsicles arranged for decoration. The decorations, by the way, are terrible. Tapestries depicting heroic battles. Except the blood is suspiciously artistic, and everyone looks too clean. Shields line the walls, cracked and mismatched, souvenirs from wars long forgotten, or fights that were mostly arguments about taxes. Animal heads stare down from the beams. One has clearly been up there too long. Its eyes are missing, and a small bird has made a nest in its left nostril. A bard attempts a song. It's tuneless and sad, like a lute being slowly drowned. No one listens. He gives up halfway through and returns to gnawing on a beat. You try not to look disappointed. You tell yourself this is just breakfast. It'll get better. It doesn't. It turns out this is also lunch. And dinner. Same stew, same bread. Maybe colder this time. Maybe with a bonus rat hair if you sit too close to the storage barrels. There's no menu, no variety. Just the unchanging, unflavoured march of medieval nutrition designed to keep you alive and deeply unhappy. Eventually, the Lord speaks. It's a toast, or a warning, or both. Something about loyalty, something about God, something about not stealing apples again or you'll lose a finger. Everyone nods like this is fine. You nod too. Your bowl is empty, your stomach is confused, and your lungs are gently coated in indoor smoke damage. After the meal, people linger. This is the only warmish space in the entire castle, so naturally, it becomes the medieval version of a co-working space. People darning socks, mending tools, fighting each other, or complaining loudly about back pain and sin. There's gossip too, whispered behind sleeves. Who's sleeping with the cook? Who insulted the priest? Who got caught trying to milk the wrong goat? Everyone knows everything, especially the wrong things. Eventually, someone stokes the fire, badly. The room fills with another lungful of smoke, and the Lord's dog throws up under the table. No one cleans it. You decide now is a good time to leave. Not because you're done, but because the concept of joy has become entirely theoretical. As you stand, your knees crack like an old book binding. You shuffle back toward your icy chamber, stomach churning, eyes red, and clothes now carrying the permanent scent of medieval brunch fog. And as the heavy door swings closed behind you, you realize one crucial thing. This is the castle's best room. Let that sink in. After surviving dinner, and by dinner, we mean a bowl of regrets boiled in mystery water, you might be hoping to meet someone friendly. Don't. Everyone here is either ignoring you, judging you, or actively plotting something involving turnips and blunt objects. Let's mingle. So, you've survived the Great Hall. Barely. Your stomach is now holding a suspicious stew hostage, your lungs are smoke-cured, and your clothes have absorbed so many medieval smells they could qualify as historical artifacts. But before you collapse into your bed of sadness and straw lice, it's time to meet the locals. And let's be clear, they don't want to meet you. The castle is full of people, not in a lively, bustling social way, more in a the walls have ears and also those ears are judging you kind of way. Every corridor has a shadow in it. Every room has someone lurking, muttering, or looking like they're 2 seconds away from a small personal rebellion. The castle might be stone, but its residents are pure tension. Let's start at the top. The nobles. These are the people with titles, land, weapons, and the unshakable belief that their blood is somehow more valuable than yours, even though their entire family tree is more tangled than a basket of medieval eels. You'll know them by the fur-trimmed cloaks, permanent sneers, and the vague scent of lavender and condescension. They glide through the halls like they're floating, though you know it's just soft-soled boots and an attitude problem. They speak only when necessary, and when they do, it's either to demand something, insult something, or vaguely threaten something. You try smiling at one. He looks at you like you just farted on a relic. His companion whispers something and laughs. You don't ask what. You already hate them. Nobles don't carry things, ever. Objects simply appear in their vicinity, handed over by someone below them in the social food chain. If they're holding anything, it's probably a goblet of wine or a decorative dagger, sometimes both. They rarely make eye contact with servants, and if they do, it's the kind of glance that says, I could have you flogged, but I won't, because I'm very busy not working. Now we move one rung down the ladder, the knights. Noble adjacent, muscle forward. These are the glorified sword jocks of the castle, clad in metal, emotionally unavailable, and always slightly bruised from training, fighting, or falling off a horse, while insisting they didn't fall off a horse. They grunt more than they speak, and tend to walk with the air of someone who's done heroic things, but can't quite remember what they were. They don't trust outsiders. They also don't trust each other. Everyone here is locked in a silent competition to be the most valorous, which mostly involves passive-aggressively cleaning swords and talking about honour while flexing their triceps at confused scullery maids. You walk past one and get side-eyed so hard you nearly trip on your own dignity. Then there's the servants, the people actually keeping the castle running, cooking, scrubbing, fetching, and generally being invisible until something goes wrong. They're dressed in rough, faded clothes that have seen more winters than most trees. Their hands are cracked. Their eyes are hollow. Their hope died 3 feasts ago. Servants don't make small talk. They make brisk eye contact and keep moving. You, as the newest person here, are somewhere between unproven liability and fresh meat. No one is interested in making friends. They will acknowledge you if you're carrying something heavy, bleeding noticeably, or sobbing in a corner. Otherwise, you might as well be furniture. Every hallway has someone sweeping. Every stairwell has someone hauling water, lugging firewood, or muttering about turnips. No one rests. Resting is for the dead or the noble. And even then, it's a bit of a gamble. You ask one servant for directions. She hands you a bucket and walks away. You're not sure what the bucket is for. You carry it anyway. People start treating you slightly better. The bucket is power now. At the lowest rung of all are the children. Small, fast, unsupervised. They run in packs, whisper in corners, and know every secret passage in the castle. They might help you, or they might laugh and steal your belt. It depends on their mood and whether you accidentally stepped on the rat they were raising as a pet. One offers you a magic rock in exchange for food. You give him part of your bread. The rock is not magical. The child vanishes. You never see either again. There's also the priest, who appears at random intervals like a spiritual jump scare. He mutters Latin, smells like candle wax and self-importance, and will absolutely ruin your afternoon with a lecture about sin, delivered in a tone that suggests he's deeply familiar with most of them. He believes everyone in this castle is damned. He might be right. Let's not forget the castle weirdos. Every castle has at least one. There's the hermit who lives in the tower and only speaks in riddles. The herbalist who may or may not be a witch. The guard who sleeps standing up with his eyes open. The noblewoman who has a pet ferret she treats better than her husband. You'll meet them all, usually when you least expect it. Social interaction in the castle is like medieval chess. Everyone is a piece. No one trusts anyone. And the game ends with someone poisoned at dinner. You learn quickly that people talk at you, not to you. If someone calls your name, it's never good. If someone invites you somewhere, you should probably bring a weapon and a second will. There are no secrets here, only things everyone knows but pretends not to. Affairs, betrayals, stolen bread, cursed trinkets. All of it whispered behind curtains and passed like trench gossip from servant to servant. Information is currency. Eye contact is dangerous. Smiling is suspicious. And the smell. Let's talk about the smell. Everyone reeks. It's a symphony of sweat, grease, mildew, and regret. You pass someone who smells like fermented onions and sadness. Another reeks of smoke, garlic, and possibly livestock. No one bathes regularly. Deodorant is a myth. Perfume is just rosewater dumped on a problem. Your own scent now includes fire pit, damp wool, and last night's stew sweat. You stand in the middle of the courtyard, bucket still in hand, and realise you are now part of this ecosystem. Not a guest, not a visitor, just another body in the great grinding machine of castle life. You're a low-ranking, mostly ignored, mildly stinky background character in a drama no one invited you to. And if you want to survive, you'd better learn the rules fast. Rule 1. Never interrupt a noble. Rule 2. Don't touch anything without gloves. Rule 3. If a servant starts running, follow them. Something's probably on fire or someone's about to die. So, that's your new community. A pile of class anxiety, political tension, and violent interpersonal dynamics, stuffed into a cold stone box with no privacy, no plumbing, and no emotional support goat. Everyone is armed, everyone is tired, and nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to hear about how cozy castles seemed in the movies. Welcome to the family. So the people weren't exactly warm. Maybe you'll find comfort in your room, maybe a soft bed, maybe a moment of peace. Ha! No, you're sleeping in what can only be described as a haystack of despair, with a strong breeze and even stronger lice. Welcome to your chamber of horrors. You've earned it. After a full day of being ignored, smoked like a ham, mildly insulted by a child, and fed a bowl of warm despair, you're finally shown to your room. You're told this with a straight face, as though you're about to enter a private sanctuary and not, say, a broom closet redesigned by someone who hates joy. The servant leading you doesn't speak. She just pushes open a crooked wooden door and gestures vaguely inside. The door creaks like it's about to confess to a crime. You step in. She walks off. No goodbye, no explanation. Just silence and the lingering scent of boiled cabbage trailing after her like a warning. This is your chamber. And by chamber, we mean one barely rectangular room with a window the size of an anxious pigeon, a wooden bed frame that looks like it was cobbled together by a monk who'd given up halfway, and a straw mattress that sighs when you sit on it. Not metaphorically, it actually sighs. Something living might be inside. You pause to take it all in. The air is colder inside than it was in the hallway, which is impressive because the hallway was flirting with frostbite. There's a single candle on a tiny stool, flickering like it too, wants to die. The wax is lopsided. The flame hisses when you breathe too close. It casts just enough light to let you see the things you were hoping to ignore. A spider the size of your shame crouched on the wall, a patch of moisture growing in the corner like a medieval science project, and a small, mysterious stain near the bed that you're absolutely not investigating. There are no pillows, no blankets, just the mattress. A lumpy, flea-riddled sack of straw, stuffed into a crusty linen shell that might have once been white, before time, filth, and possibly a plague victim took their toll. You press down. The straw crunches. Something squirms. You choose not to scream. The blanket, and calling it that is generous, hangs over the bed frame like a wet towel at a bus stop. It's rough, woolen, and smells like it spent the summer wrapped around a diseased goat. You lift it cautiously and instantly recoil at the stench. Mould, sweat, and the unmistakable tang of something that died and was only mostly cleaned up. You sit on the edge of the bed. The whole frame groans beneath you, not out of physical strain, but spiritual anguish. The boards creak like they're reliving every bad decision that led to this moment. You try lying down. It's like sleeping on a pile of angry corn husks. Every shift sends up a puff of dust, and something that might be straw mites. Your skin starts itching immediately. Then the drafts arrive. Not a breeze. Not a touch of cool air. No, this is a full-blown Arctic intrusion coming straight through the stone wall, right at your face. There's no insulation. The walls are just thick, cold slabs of damp regret. You pull the blanket over yourself. It doesn't help. You may as well have covered yourself in frozen sandpaper. You look up. The ceiling is wood. Blackened beams crisscross above you, coated in spider webs and what might be a fossilized bird. Every few seconds, dust sifts down. Something shifts in the rafters. You tell yourself it's just a rat, because the alternatives are worse. There's no fireplace, just a small hole in the wall above the door for ventilation, which mostly exists to let the wind howl through like a vengeful spirit. Every time you start to relax, or what passes for relaxing in a room where the mattress has fleas and the shadows whisper, the wind howls, loudly, suddenly, like it's personally offended by your presence. And the walls echo. It's a weird kind of echo, not the fun, cathedral-style reverberation. No, this is the echo of old stone that's absorbed too many arguments, prayers, and deathbed confessions. You hear murmurs, footsteps from nowhere, the distant clank of metal. Maybe it's the guards. Maybe it's something else. Maybe the castle just likes to remind people it was built on bones. You shift in bed and hear a whisper. You tell yourself it's the wind. But deep down, you know it wasn't. Privacy? Absolutely not. The door doesn't lock. It doesn't even fully close. There's a gap at the bottom wide enough for rodents, gossip, or a determined toddler. Every sound from the hallway filters in. Footsteps, coughs, something being dragged, someone snoring in a way that suggests possession. You learn quickly to ignore it. Not because it's normal, but because your mind is trying to protect you. The chamber is so dark now, the candle barely does anything. Shadows stretch across the walls like something out of a particularly low-budget nightmare. You tuck yourself in, and by tuck, we mean you curl into a semi-defensive shape and try not to touch the mattress more than necessary. Your feet are frozen. Your nose is running. Something just bit your ankle. You tell yourself it's fine. It's fine. This is normal. People lived like this for centuries. This is heritage. This is history. This is how they built character and rashes and early graves. Time passes. You don't sleep. You fade in and out of consciousness like a haunted Victorian governess. The candle dies. The room goes fully black. You try to count rats to calm yourself. You lose track at 4. Someone coughs in the hall. Wet. Rattling. The kind of cough that ends dynasties. You hear footsteps pause outside your door, then keep walking. Or maybe they didn't. You lie there, completely awake, staring into the dark with burning eyes, itchy legs, and a spine shaped like a question mark. There is no comfort. There is no peace. There is only the realization that this, right here, is where people used to rest. Kings, queens, knights, cooks, prisoners. They all curled up under lice blankets in rooms colder than the crypt. You finally drift off, barely, only to wake up an hour later with your jaw clenched, your back screaming, and your legs doing an involuntary spasm that scares the nearby rat, who scampers off with a squeak of shared suffering. You get up before dawn, not because you're refreshed, but because staying horizontal feels like a threat. You stumble into your boots, throw the blanket back onto the mattress like you're trying to exile it from your life, and step into the hall. The air is colder. The stone is harder. You're more tired than when you arrived. And now, you know the truth. Your room wasn't built for sleep. It was built for survival. And just barely. You've survived your bedroom. Sort of. You didn't freeze to death or get dragged off by rats. But now, nature calls. And she's not polite. It's time to face the castle's bathroom situation. And reader, I hope you didn't expect plumbing. At some point, after the lice have held their midnight rave and your spine has folded into a reluctant ampersand, your stomach issues a royal decree. Nature calls. Only nature is not calling politely. Nature is shouting, through a megaphone, while rattling your intestines like a disgruntled bartender shaking a medieval cocktail of regret and half-digested cabbage. So now you face the ultimate medieval dilemma. Where, exactly, do you relieve yourself? There is no bathroom. That word won't even exist for centuries. You can't knock on a door marked WC and expect privacy, plumbing, or air freshener. You're in a castle, a fortress, a pile of drafty stone designed for war, not waste management. Here, relieving yourself is less of a routine and more of a medieval survival puzzle. One with poor instructions and a high risk of public humiliation. If you're lucky, and by lucky, we mean likely to still contract something but not immediately fall in, You've been granted access to a garderobe. The name sounds elegant, refined, perhaps even French. That's the trap. A garderobe is not a boudoir. It is, quite literally, a hole in the wall, a vertical escape hatch for human misery that empties directly into the castle's cesspit, or, in some truly unfortunate designs, onto the side of the outer wall. Yes, the outside, where wind exists, and people, and splash radius. You step inside this room. The door doesn't lock. Of course it doesn't. Inside, it's a tiny stone closet with a wooden bench across the middle. The bench has a hole in it. That's it. That's the feature. The wood is damp. From what? You dare not consider. There's a draught coming up from below, sharp and judgmental. You peer through the hole, immediately regret it. Down below, in the darkness, lies the pit. A collection of human waste, rotting food, insects, and secrets. It doesn't smell. It attacks. The air surges upward in waves, like it's angry you opened the lid. There is no seat, no privacy, no dignity. Just you, hovering over the abyss, like a reluctant sacrifice to the gods of digestion. You try to be quick, but the moment you lower yourself, a wind rushes up the hole and hits parts of your anatomy that weren't prepared for contact with castle air. It's not just cold. It's medieval cold. The kind of cold that reaches inside your soul and files a noise complaint. You're also not alone. The pit is home to an entire biosphere. Insects, maggots, possibly a frog who's made peace with his circumstances. There's scratching down there, or maybe above. Honestly, at this point, directionality is a luxury. And what do you wipe with, you ask? Oh, sweet summer child, there is no toilet paper, not even the harsh public restroom kind that dissolves upon contact with air. No, in the 14th century, wiping is a moral test. You use whatever is nearby and semi-absorbent, a handful of straw, a leaf, a piece of old rag, some moss if you're feeling decadent. If you're fancy, maybe a scrap of wool. If you're unlucky, your own sleeve. Sometimes, nothing at all. Which is why no one shakes hands. Ever. You finish. Sort of. The wiping is more guesswork than effectiveness. You stand up, slightly traumatized. There's no way to wash your hands. No basin. No soap. Just a bucket of cold water down the hall that might have also been used to clean boots, carrots, and one guy's feet. So you rub your hands on your tunic and pretend it's fine. It's not. But denial is free. Now let's say you didn't have access to the garderobe. Maybe it was full. Maybe someone fell in. Maybe a rat emerged mid-use and made direct, judgmental eye contact. In that case, you're introduced to the chamber pot. This isn't a backup plan. This is the plan. A chamber pot is a ceramic bowl you keep under your bed, beside your bed, or in someone else's path at exactly the worst moment. At night, when walking to the garderobe feels like a frostbite speedrun, you do your business in the pot, then empty it in the morning. And where do you empty it? Why, out the window, of course. That's right. Medieval sanitation was equal parts gravity and audacity. You open your shutter, yell something vaguely resembling "Gardilou," a bastardized French phrase meaning "watch out below," and toss the contents into the street. A street that people walk in. A street with chickens, peasants, and hopefully no nobles who'll have you hanged for landing, splash damage on their boots. Public sanitation? Non-existent. Streets are rivers of runoff. Gutters are full of slop. You haven't walked anywhere without stepping in something you actively avoided. Your shoes are now crime scenes. Now imagine doing all this while sick. Dysentery, stomach cramps, food poisoning from that questionable meat pie. You're not just dealing with embarrassment. You're fighting for your life while hanging your bare backside over a hole in the floor and praying you don't die pantsless and halfway through a bowel movement. If you're a woman, Multiply all of this by 1,000. There's no hygiene products, no privacy, and no empathy. You're expected to keep quiet, stay clean, and somehow deal with biology using scraps of cloth, pain tolerance, and societal shame. No hot water, no herbs, no understanding, just a lot of muttering and probably a quick accusation of witchcraft if you seem too vocal about it. And here's a fun bonus fact. Castle moats? Yeah, not crystal clear pools of fairy tale elegance. They're cesspools, literally. Waste from the guardrobes often emptied into the moat. So if you were picturing swimming in one, first of all, why? Second of all, don't. You'd come out with fewer teeth and more diseases than you went in with. Oh, and if you thought the Lord had it better, marginally, he might have a private guardrobe. He might have someone else clean the chamber pot. But at the end of the day, he's still pooping into a hole above a pit like the rest of us. Nobility stops where gravity begins. So, the next time you find yourself annoyed at a slightly understocked modern bathroom, remember, medieval sanitation was a weapon, and every trip to the garderobe was an act of courage. You head back to your room, numb, nauseated, and forever changed. Your hands smell like betrayal. Your soul smells worse. And somewhere in the darkness behind you, a rat climbs out of the pit and reconsiders its life choices. And you, dear traveller, you still have to do this again tomorrow. Now that you've emptied your soul into a pit of communal suffering, it's only fair you ask, what's for dinner? Or midnight snack? Or edible punishment disguised as food? Let's explore what snacking means in a place where the bread can chip teeth and the rats are faster than you. It's late. You're cold, your back hurts, your stomach is growling, and there's a damp, breadcrumb-sized piece of straw poking you in the thigh, like it's personally offended by your entire existence. You turn over for the 20th time on your itchy hay mattress and realize something important. You're hungry. No, you're medieval hungry, which is different. It's not just could use a sandwich hungry. It's I might gnaw on my own shoe and call it rustic cuisine hungry. You sit up. There is no pantry, no kitchen light to flick on, no fridge to stand in front of while pondering life's choices. This is a castle, not a holiday inn. If you didn't eat it at supper, and eat is a generous term for what happened with the pottage and the mystery meat, you're out of luck. There are no snacks. There is no second dinner. There is only darkness and the gnawing regret that you didn't steal more crusty bread when you had the chance. Your stomach rumbles like distant thunder. You consider what's available. On the side table, a wooden cup with the remains of yesterday's ale. Flat, warm, tastes like wheat dyed and stayed that way. A few crumbs from a meal that happened 3 social classes ago. And a small round object that might be a preserved plum. Or a rock. You lick it. It's a rock. You think about venturing to the kitchens. You picture a pantry, shelves lined with dried fruits, cheese, perhaps a bit of salted meat wrapped in cloth and secrets. But no. The castle's kitchen is locked, dark, and aggressively haunted by cooks with sharp ladles and zero tolerance for late-night wanderers. You know what happens to people who steal food after hours? Nothing good. Usually something involving stocks, shame, and an angry noble waking up without his goose liver. So you explore your real options. First up, salted herring. There's always salted herring. It's the medieval go-to snack. Dried, chewy, aggressively salty, and smells like a regret sandwich wrapped in fish guilt. 1 bite pulls all the moisture out of your body. 2 bites and your tongue files a formal complaint. 3, and you start hallucinating about oranges. Next, dried peas. Not roasted, not flavoured, just peas. The kind you have to boil for 12 hours, just to make them slightly less like gravel. You suck on one. It does nothing. Your teeth ache. Your stomach yawns in protest. You'd kill for fruit. Something juicy. Something with flavour. An apple. A plum. Hell, a raisin. But this is winter. and fruit is a luxury you'll see again sometime between Lent and never. Even if you had fruit, it'd be half fermented, wormy, or stolen by a squirrel with better connections. You rummage under your bed. There's a stale piece of trench bread from earlier, dense, dry, and the colour of medieval concrete. You tap it on the wall. It echoes. You consider it. You bite. Your jaw makes a sound like a blacksmith giving up. You chew slowly. It tastes like old rye, bitterness, and sawdust. You keep chewing. You keep regretting. Then comes the nibble. Not yours. Someone else's. You freeze. A small movement at the edge of your vision. A soft rustle. The unmistakable sound of tiny criminal paws. The rats. Oh yes, they're here. They've always been here. They live in the walls, under the floor, above the beams. The castle is their Airbnb, and they are not paying rent. You feel one on your blanket. Bold, brazen, possibly named Greg. He's nibbling a crumb you didn't know was there. You stay still. You don't want to startle him. If he panics, he might run somewhere unpleasant, like across your face. You stare at Greg. Greg stares back. There's a silent agreement. He gets the crumb. You keep your fingers. He wins. Greg always wins. You hear more rustling. There's a whole rat party happening beneath the bed frame now. Nibbling, chewing, tiny squeaks of joy. They're having a better time than you are. Probably better food, too. One of them drags away a piece of bread that you were going to eat. You consider fighting him for it, but honestly, the rat has more energy and sharper teeth. You lay back down. Your stomach continues its symphony of despair. You dream of grapes, of cheese, of honeyed dates on a clean tablecloth. You wake up with a bit of straw in your mouth, and one rat cuddled against your leg for warmth. He's surprisingly soft. You name him Sebastian. You both silently agree to ignore this happened. Let's say, by some miracle, you did stash something. Maybe a bit of hard cheese from a feast. Maybe a crust hidden in your tunic like a shameful treasure. You pull it out. You smile. You bite. It's mouldy. Of course it is. Not fresh, interesting mould. Not aged cheese mould. We're talking blue fuzz of death mould, the kind that laughs in the face of penicillin and is probably developing its own culture. You scrape it off. You eat it anyway. You're not proud. No one is. You chew slowly, each bite a gamble between nourishment and gastrointestinal roulette. You win. Probably. You'll find out in the morning. Let's be clear. In the Middle Ages, eating was an event. Snacking. That's for the weak, the rich, or the condemned. You ate at prescribed times, if you were allowed to. Breakfast, maybe. Dinner, if there's anything left. Supper, if you're lucky. And if you're a servant or peasant, you ate what you were given and pretended to like it, even if it was a turnip that died unloved and undercooked. There's no concept of just grabbing something. You can't walk into the kitchen and assemble a sandwich. You can't sneak a cookie from the jar. You are the jar, and the cookie is gone. Even nobles don't snack much. Their food is richer, yes. Spiced, salted, sometimes still moving. But it's not available 24/7. If they're peckish at midnight, they send for a servant, who groans and stumbles off to the kitchens to find something roasted, jellied, or regrettably alive. And even then, it's mostly show. Nobles eat like they dress. Lavish, expensive, deeply uncomfortable. So here you are, in your room, wrapped in lice wool, belly growling, mouth dry, eyes wide open and haunted. A mouse is chewing something behind the wall. A rat has claimed your sock as property. Your last pea rolled under the bed and may now be part of a rodent economy. And what's that? You smell something? Someone, somewhere, is eating real food. Probably the Lord. Probably roast meat, or stewed figs, or something warm and dripping with fat. You try not to cry. You try not to listen. You fail at both. You lie back, hollow and hopeless. Your hunger has evolved. It's no longer a feeling. It's a personality trait. You're no longer hungry. You are hunger. You are a hollowed-out medieval shell filled with rat breath and regret. Sleep doesn't come easily, but eventually it comes. Dreamless, restless, stomach first. And you wake to the sound of a bell, the scream of a rooster, and the realization that it's breakfast time. Spoiler, it's more peas. You're fed. Kind of. You've chewed sadness, swallowed salt, and questioned the morality of turnips. Now it's time for sleep, assuming you can fall asleep in a room colder than your ex's heart and louder than a tavern during tax season. Good luck. It's late, again. Though late is a flexible concept in the 14th century. There's no clock, no digital readout gently glowing beside you. Just darkness so thick it feels like it's pressing down on your eyelids and whispering, "Time has no meaning here." You're in bed. Technically, it's more a wooden rectangle filled with straw, lumps, and bitter disappointment. Your feet are curled under you like a defensive animal. Your one blanket is aggressively woolen and smells like it witnessed a war, which, statistically, it probably did. You're trying to sleep, not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's literally nothing else to do after dark. There's no nightlight, no book, no scrolling through doom on a smartphone. Just you, a rapidly cooling room, 1,000 itches, and a creeping sense that something just scurried across your foot. You shift. The mattress crunches. Loudly. The straw protests your movement like an angry villager who was not consulted. You hear something small and legged escape from under your hip. You say a silent prayer. To whom you're not sure. Any deity accepting lice-related concerns. You try to find a comfortable position. You fail. Again. The blanket doesn't cover your entire body. If you cover your shoulders, your feet freeze. If you tuck your feet, your shoulders are attacked by the night air like it's settling a grudge. You try curling up like a cat. Your spine says no. Your knees crack like they've been storing ancient secrets. And still, the cold creeps in. It's not a chill, not a draft. It's a full-body betrayal. The fire's dead, long dead, and no one's coming to relight it. Firewood is a precious resource, not to be wasted on your personal comfort. So the temperature drops, inch by inch, hour by hour, until eventually your breath is visible in your bedroom, which is less of a room and more of a box made of stone, guilt, and air that's trying to become ice. You try tucking your hands into your armpits. You try breathing into your blanket. You try visualizing warmth, soup, a hot bath, a sunny day. But your imagination is frozen too. Your nose feels like it's made of porcelain. Your toes have vanished. You would light the bed on fire just to be warm for 5 minutes. You're starting to think frostbite might be a mercy. And then, the snoring begins. It's not yours. It's coming from across the hall, or the room above, or maybe the room next door. Possibly all three. There are no real walls here, just wooden partitions thin enough to hear sins through. Someone is asleep, deeply, offensively asleep, and they are snoring like a Viking war horn. It's a sound that starts in the chest, rolls through the sinuses, and erupts into the night with the intensity of a collapsing drawbridge. You hear it, feel it, live in it. Every 10 seconds, it shudders through the castle like an ancient beast groaning under the weight of its own mediocrity. You lie there, staring into the darkness, plotting a murder that would be considered justified in at least 3 parishes. You try to ignore it. You fail. You try to match your breathing to it. You fail harder. You consider banging on the wall, but remember it's a plank, held in place by mould and divine apathy. So instead you seethe silently and count backwards from 100, then forwards again, then consider headbutting the mattress until you pass out. Outside, something howls. You tell yourself it's just the wind. It might be the wind, but it sounds suspiciously like a dying goat, or a plague ghost, or maybe your own soul trying to escape your body in the form of a scream. Either way, the walls groan. The ceiling creaks. Your candle's gone out. You're fully immersed in the 2 a.m. medieval existential crisis. Deluxe edition. You think, what is my life? You think, how did anyone survive this? You think, is this really what people mean by simpler times? You feel the weight of the stone above you, heavy, unfeeling. The castle doesn't care. The past doesn't care. You are one frozen human sack of bones in a 1,000-year-old box. You could die of hypothermia, and it would take them 3 days to notice. Maybe 4 if your body doesn't start to smell, which, to be fair, everything already does. You itch, constantly. The lice are awake. Unlike you, they are thriving, feasting, mating, living their best lives on your scalp, in your armpits, beneath the blanket that now feels like it's woven entirely from cursed pubic hair. You scratch. You try not to think about it. You scratch again. You feel something move. You scratch until you cry a little. Still better than the cold. And just when you think you've hit peak medieval misery, the floorboards creak. Very close by. It's the kind of creak that sounds like it knows you're listening. A footstep? A rat the size of sin? A guard? A ghost? Your body tenses. Your bladder twinges. You hold your breath. Silence. Then another creak. Then nothing. You lie there, paralyzed. Not with fear. That would require energy. No, you're paralyzed with fatigue, cold, and the knowledge that even if someone were breaking into your room right now, you couldn't get out of bed fast enough to care. You would simply accept your fate. Please, just kill me quickly, you'd say. But before you do, could you relight the fire? Eventually, somehow, you drift. Not sleep, not rest. Just a sort of medieval stupor where your brain shuts off and your body pretends to be dead. You're vaguely aware of dreams. Rats in waistcoats offering you cheese, your blanket talking to you in Latin, a warm bath that turns into a moat. You wake up an hour later, frozen again. Everything hurts. The snoring continues. Your body has reshaped itself into a shape not found in any medical text. Your teeth ache. Your skin is dry. One eye is stuck shut from a tear that froze mid-roll. You consider crying again, but you've dehydrated emotionally. You try to sit up. Your joints disagree. Your knee pops like it's issuing a formal complaint. You roll sideways, pull on your boots with fingers that have lost all sensation, and stare at your candle, now a stub of wax and melancholy. Outside, the bell rings. Dawn. Somewhere a servant is already carrying buckets of water. Somewhere a pig is screaming. Somewhere someone's chamber pot just hit the courtyard below with a medieval splat. You take a deep breath. The cold burns your throat. You didn't sleep. Not really. But you survived the night, and in the 14th century, that counts as a win. You thought the worst part of the night was getting warm. You were wrong, because as soon as you close your eyes, the castle comes alive with the symphony of your worst fears. That noise? Not the wind, probably not the rats. Possibly something from the dungeon. Let's investigate, or better yet, don't. It's late again, because in a castle, it's always late. Time exists only as before the next terrible thing happens. You're back in bed, cocooned in your mildew-scented blanket, lying very still, very tired, and absolutely not asleep. Why? Because the castle doesn't believe in silence. It believes in sound. Deep, unpredictable, soul-crushing sound. You thought the night would be peaceful. Some quiet, a few hoots from an owl, maybe the distant wind howling across the parapets. You were wrong. So wrong. Because the real soundtrack of a medieval night is a horror podcast with no off button and full surround sound. It starts small. A creak. A shuffle. The faint dragging of something soft but deliberate. Maybe it's a servant. Maybe it's a ghost. Maybe it's the world's most depressed ferret. You freeze. Your eyes scan the dark. There's nothing there, but now you're listening. And once you're listening, you hear everything. Footsteps. Not the soft kind. Not bare feet or slippers. Armoured boots. Heavy, echoing, ominous. Someone's patrolling. Maybe it's the night watch. Maybe it's a guard. Maybe it's the same guy who glares at you in the daylight and now stomps around at 2 a.m. for fun. The boots thud down the corridor with the subtlety of a warhorse, pause outside your door, then continue on. You don't breathe until he's gone. Even then, it's shallow. Then there's the scratching. From inside the wall, under the bed, above the ceiling beams. You tell yourself it's rats, which, let's be honest, it is. But part of you is also convinced there's something else, something worse. A cursed weasel, a forgotten spirit. Your own bad decisions crawling around in vermin form. A long pause, then a loud thump. You sit bolt upright. It came from downstairs, or maybe the floor above, or the courtyard. It's unclear. What is clear is that something large just fell over, or fell down. You listen. You wait. Then, faintly, you hear it. Retching, guttural, wet, unapologetic. Someone is vomiting into a bucket, or near a bucket, possibly just into their own boots. It's not subtle. It's not short. It goes on, and on. Like an operatic solo performed by a man who lost a fight with a sheep and a questionable leg of mutton. You hear coughing, a crash, then silence. For a moment you wonder if he died mid-retch. Honestly, it might be the best-case scenario. Then comes the moaning. Not romantic, not ghostly, just tired, aching, medieval moaning. A serf, probably. Or 3. You can't tell. You just know someone is lying somewhere nearby, audibly regretting their entire existence. It's the sound of a body that's been worked too hard, fed too little, and slept on one too many splinters. The moan echoes through the stones like a dying foghorn trying to communicate despair. You pull your blanket tighter. It doesn't help. The air is colder now. The room feels like it's breathing. You try to shut your eyes. That's when you hear the howling. Wolves. Real ones. Somewhere out beyond the castle walls, in the trees, in the hills, wherever wolves go when they're hungry and angry at the moon. The howl cuts through the air like a blade through mutton. Long, low, rising, ending in a note of promise. You listen to it and instinctively curl into yourself, because nothing says snack like a shivering human burrito in a drafty stone room. Then you remember, the castle has dogs, guard dogs, which means if the wolves are howling this close, something out there is not scared of the castle. And that's a problem you'll deal with tomorrow. Or not. Honestly, you don't see a long future here. A gust of wind slams the shutters. You jump. The shutters rattle like bones in a bag. The wind moans through the cracks like it's rehearsing a tragedy. You try to convince yourself that it's all natural, that the castle isn't haunted, that the creaks, thuds, scratches, moans, howls, and wet coughing fits are all just part of normal, everyday, nightly castle life. You fail. You hear whispers. Not voices, not words, just whispers. Or maybe it's the wind. Or maybe someone is whispering. From inside the walls. From the hallway. From inside your own brain, which at this point is 70% paranoia and 30% trauma. You try to reason with yourself. You try to not get up. Because getting up is worse. Getting up means entering the hallway, and nothing good happens in castle hallways at night. That's where the shadows are deepest. That's where you hear things you can't explain. That's where the cold feels like it's pressing hands against your back. And if you're really lucky, you'll hear the dungeon. You didn't know you could hear it, but you can, faintly, somewhere far below. a sound that rises like gas from a forgotten grave. It's a scream, not sharp, not sudden, just long and low. Someone's being punished. Maybe they stole a turnip. Maybe they failed to pay taxes. Maybe they talked back to a noble, and now their kneecaps are getting medieval feedback. You lie there, eyes wide, blanket pulled up to your nose, and think, this is fine. This is normal. This is how people lived. Except you know they didn't just live like this. They died like this. Cold, confused, possibly in a basement. There are no soothing sounds in the Middle Ages, no white noise machines, no gentle rain apps. Just the wet hacking of your sick neighbour, the creak of mouldy wood above you, and the existential dread that every thump is death trying to remember your room number. You do not get up. You will not get up. Even if something is whispering your name. Even if you have to pee. Even if the rat under your bed starts offering unsolicited legal advice. You are staying exactly where you are, motionless, frozen, and quietly praying to Saint, don't let it be a ghost. Eventually, mercifully, you drift into a shallow defensive sleep, the kind where your muscles remain tight and your ears never fully shut off, the kind where if someone sneezes within 500 feet, your soul flinches. And when morning finally arrives, when the bell clangs and the rooster shrieks and someone dumps a slop bucket outside your window, you wake up with crusty eyes, clenched fists, and the realization that you made it. You survived the night, but just barely. And whatever was whispering at 3 a.m., you're not sure it was human. The night was a sensory attack. The groans, the moans, the screams, and whatever Agnes was whispering through the wall. But while you were attempting to sleep, others were already awake, toiling, scrubbing, hauling, and suffering on hard mode. It's time to meet the real backbone of this awful place, the servants. Before the castle even groans awake, someone is already scrubbing the floors with a rag that's seen more sin than salvation. You hear them, faint footsteps, sloshing water, a quiet cough that sounds like someone trying to suppress their own suffering. Congratulations, the servants are up, which means everything has begun again. While you were lying in bed, wrapped in a damp wool burrito, contemplating whether you were haunted or just deeply cold, the castle's servants were already on hour 2 of a schedule that doesn't include breaks, thanks, or long-term survival. These are the real heroes, also the real victims, also the real reason anything in the castle hasn't completely collapsed under its own filth. Servants are the medieval equivalent of duct tape, holding everything together with zero recognition and a constant risk of unravelling. Their job descriptions are vague but universal. Wake before the sun, collapse after it, and in between, do everything. Let's meet one. She's 14. Her name might be Alice, or Joan, or you there. She wakes up before dawn in a corner of the kitchen, curled into a wooden nook that someone once optimistically called a sleeping shelf. It's not a bed. It's a plank. A rough, narrow plank mounted above the pantry. There's no mattress, no pillow, just the subtle comfort of gravity reminding her that one wrong turn means she falls directly into a pile of onions and regret. She gets up quietly. She doesn't yawn. Yawning is a luxury for people with breakfast and purpose. She pulls on the same dress she's worn all week, rough wool, patched, permanently stained with stew, grease, and blood that may or may not be chicken. She scratches her head. Her lice scratch back. It's an understanding. Her first task? Stoke the kitchen fire. Not start it. Stoke it. Because the cook already started it, while everyone else was still dreaming of slightly less awful places. The cook is already sweating. She's been up since when the stars were still judging you. She hasn't smiled since 1312. Breakfast must be prepared, not for the servants. Oh no, for the nobles, the people who woke up in rooms larger than the entire servants' quarters, with blankets that don't smell like compost. They'll have pottage, bread, beer, maybe eggs, if the chickens haven't unionized. And it's up to Alice and 50 other unpaid souls to make sure it's ready. After breakfast, she scrubs floors, walls, buckets. Anything that holds filth, receives filth, or might become filth. Her hands are red and cracked. Soap? If she's lucky, there's lye. Otherwise, it's sand, water, and divine forgiveness. She wipes down a bench. She carries slop. She dumps it into a trench that smells like the devil's aftershave. Then she moves on to laundry, which, in the 14th century, is less a chore and more a punishment from God. She hauls water from a well, pours it into a cauldron, boils it with ashes, and then beats the clothes against rocks until the dirt, lice, and joy have been removed. Then she hangs them up in the courtyard, where wind, chickens, and some guy named Edgar might ruin them instantly. Next, she helps carry chamber pots. That's right, she picks up containers of noble excrement and hauls them down to the dump trench. She tries not to spill. Last week, she slipped on a wet stone and ended up face first in a puddle that was definitely 80% someone else's mistake. She didn't cry. There's no time for crying, only rinsing, briefly. Now it's time to sweep the Great Hall. Again, even though it was swept 2 hours ago. Because someone tracked in mud, hay, pig dung, and the medieval version of emotional baggage. She moves silently, her eyes on the floor. Because if a noble notices her, that's a problem. That could mean getting pulled into a personal errand, or being blamed for a missing goblet, or, worst of all, being seen. And being seen, in a castle, is dangerous. Because one mistake, one tray dropped, one dish chipped, one wrong answer to a lady's moody question, means punishment. Maybe not public whipping, maybe not stocks, but definitely dung-hauling duty. 3 weeks of it. Which means literally moving piles of feces from the guardrobes to the cesspits, with a shovel, or a bucket, or your bare hands if the tools are being used by someone else who's also being punished. And that's just her day. Now multiply that by forever. Because servants don't get promoted, they don't get raises, they don't climb the ladder, they are the ladder. And when they break, they're replaced, quickly, quietly, without ceremony. Some are born into service. Others are peasants doing castle duty. Some are indentured. Some are orphans who never got out. A few are free, in the sense that they're not legally tied to a lord, but still wake up every day to serve him breakfast, scrub his floors, and pretend not to hear him arguing with his wife about who poisoned the wine. And don't forget the scullery maids. They clean the things that clean the things. They spend their lives elbow deep in grease, soot, bones, and broken dreams. Their job is to stay quiet, work quickly, and smell like burnt meat forever. The stable boys aren't better off. They wake up to manure, shovel manure, feed animals that look at them with disdain, and then sleep, if they're lucky, on hay that has already been claimed by fleas. Their hands are permanently covered in something sticky, their boots forever wet, and at the bottom of it all, deeper than even the pit beneath the guardrobe, are the kitchen spit boys, small children whose job is to sit near the fire and turn a giant metal rod all day, so the meat roasts evenly. They sit, they sweat, they get burned, and they occasionally pass out from the smoke and are replaced by other children. It's a rotation, like a nightmare carousel. So the next time you see a medieval banquet in a movie, gleaming halls, roasted pig, glittering goblets, remember, it took an army of underpaid, overworked, underfed, exhausted, itchy, lice-infested servants to make that happen. And none of them got leftovers. They went home, to their shelf, or their floor, or the warm spot behind the hearth if no one else had claimed it. They curled up in their rags, scratched their bites, coughed into the dark, and hoped the cook didn't die, because if she did, you might be next in line. You drift off to sleep knowing one thing with absolute certainty. You will never complain about your day job again. After watching people scrub floors with frozen fingers and zero joy, you might be wondering what keeps them going. The answer is food, or something like it. Let's take a tour of the castle kitchen, where hygiene goes to die and the cook actively hates your face. If you're looking for a cozy hearth and the warm smell of fresh bread wafting through rustic air, you're in the wrong fantasy novel. This isn't a charming medieval bakery with singing flower-dusted villagers. This is a castle kitchen in the 14th century, and the only thing wafting is panic. The moment you step in, your senses are assaulted. The heat hits first. Not warm and toasty heat, but did I just step into Satan's armpit heat. The fire in the hearth is always burning, not flickering, not crackling, roaring, like it's trying to convince God to take the castle now. Flames lick the sides of massive blackened cauldrons, each one bubbling ominously with something that might be stew, or might be regret made edible. The smoke curls through the air like it's lost and angry about it. Your eyes sting instantly. Breathing becomes optional. The ventilation system is a hole in the roof and pure, furious hope. You cough. Someone behind you coughs harder. Someone else just wheezes and keeps chopping onions because there's no time for mortality. It's loud. Someone's shouting. Someone's crying. Someone's chasing a goose with a cleaver and screaming, "Stand still, you demon!" You press yourself against a wall and try to look like something that can't catch fire or get conscripted. It doesn't work. A passing scullery maid shoves a basket into your arms and barks, "Mushrooms, don't eat them. Some are lies." There's no space. The room is a chaos grid of tables, kettles, boiling pots, bread ovens, buckets of guts, and knives that never get put down. People weave around each other with the accuracy of a choreographed nightmare. The floor is wet, greasy, and suspiciously sticky in places you do not want to examine too closely. And in the centre of it all, like a sainted tyrant ruling over the world's sweatiest domain, stands the cook. Her name is unknown. No one dares ask. You simply refer to her as her. She has arms like iron, and a face carved from soot and disappointment. Her apron is stained with every animal that's ever died in the name of dinner. She hasn't smiled since the Black Death, possibly because of the Black Death. She sees you. Her eyes narrow. You feel judged on a cellular level. You try to smile. She growls, not figuratively, literally. Like a mother bear who's just been told she has to make a banquet for 40 using 3 turnips and a live eel. "Stir that pot," she grunts. You obey. The pot smells like feet, despair, and unwashed poultry. You stir. Something floats to the surface. It might be a carrot, or a fingernail. You decide not to ask. Asking questions gets you reassigned to dish duty, which is medieval for tetanus waiting room. The kitchen runs on fear, muscle, and exactly one spice that was smuggled in by a merchant who probably died mid-voyage. The meat is stored hanging from hooks, some of it freshish, most of it boldly evolving. Chickens are plucked right in the corner, their feathers flying like morbid confetti. Fish is gutted beside bread dough, which is next to a bowl of offal that someone labelled pudding base. You look away. The pudding looks back. Nothing here is clean, not in the way you'd recognise. The knives are wiped, not washed. The cutting boards are just stained chunks of wood that have seen generations of blood and possibly human teeth. The mixing bowls have chips the size of craters. The ladles are shared between everything from porridge to pigeon stew. Cross-contamination. The cook calls that flavour development. Health inspectors would perish instantly. But that's okay. They don't exist. Food poisoning does, though. A lot. If your soup doesn't kill you, it builds character. If it does kill you, the castle dog gets your boots. You keep stirring. Your arms are sore. Your eyes are watering from smoke and onion fumes. The cook barks, "More salt." You add what you think is salt. It might be powdered bone. Someone throws a sack of flour across the room. It bursts. Everyone breathes in deeply. Ah, air you can chew. The bread is being baked in an oven the size of a horse and roughly the same temperature. The loaves are thick, hard, and mostly made of rye, barley, or desperation. Sometimes mixed with ground peas or even sawdust, depending on the harvest and the mood of the Lord. You saw one bounce earlier. Someone called it serviceable. A boy turns the spit over the fire. He's 11, possibly 9. His face is red. His hands are blistered. He blinks twice an hour and doesn't speak. He's been turning the same goose since sunrise. No one knows when he'll stop. Possibly never. The cook bellows something incomprehensible. A girl trips over a bucket of entrails. A cat leaps onto a table and runs off with half a sausage. The cook chucks a knife at it. Misses. Hits a beam. No one reacts. You wonder if the cat has diplomatic immunity. You're told to prep vegetables. You're given a knife that looks like it was forged by regret. You slice carrots, leeks, a turnip the size of a baby's head. Then you're told to crush garlic with the flat of the blade. You try. You crush your thumb instead. You don't scream. You just nod and accept the pain. The cook grunts approvingly. Pain means productivity. Midday hits. There's no break. No lunch hour. You might be handed a heel of bread if you look faint. Maybe a lick of grease if you're lucky. You chew while standing, eyes on your task, because if you slow down, the cook replaces you with someone smaller, faster, and less conscious of mortality. As dinner approaches, the chaos intensifies. Trays are piled high with meat, pies, jellies, stews, boiled vegetables, and bread that could be used as a weapon. Everything is plated, garnished, badly, and rushed out the door. You wipe your hands. You breathe. The kitchen empties. For 5 seconds. Then dishes come back. Soaking, sticky, scraped, exploded. One has what looks like a chicken foot fused to it. You don't flinch anymore. You dunk it in a barrel of grey water and scrape. And scrape. And scrape. The scullery maid beside you starts to cry softly. The cook tells her to save the tears. We'll use 'em in soup. Eventually, the fire dims. The pots are emptied. The knives stop flying. The cook disappears into the shadows like a demon returning to the underworld. The floor is sticky. The air is heavy. The smell will live in your pores forever. You leave the kitchen slower than you entered. Your hands hurt. Your back hurts. Your soul has splashed something on it. You smell like onions, burnt duck, and generational trauma. And just before you reach the door, someone calls out, "Don't forget to feed the pigs." You turn. You nod. You die a little. Having witnessed the soup pot of death and a knife fight over onions, you might ask, but surely they wash up after, right? Oh no, not here. Welcome to the part of castle life where filth is a lifestyle, soap is suspicious, and washing is for the weak. Let's talk about hygiene, or more accurately, the tragic, smelly absence of it. Because in a medieval castle, clean is not a concept. It's a myth, a dream, a rumour whispered by monks who once read about it in a scroll and promptly died of irony. You're not clean. No one is clean. Cleanliness here is about as real as a unicorn with good table manners. Bathing? Hilarious. Bathing is not part of the daily routine. It's not even part of the monthly routine. Bathing is a spectacle. A suspicious, water-consuming ritual that causes your neighbours to question your morals. If you express interest in washing, people look at you the way you'd look at someone asking to lick your doorknob. Let's say you do want to bathe, for some insane reason. Maybe you tripped into something that even your own lice abandoned. Maybe you made eye contact with the cook and your soul needs cleansing. Either way, here's your first problem. No bathtub. Not in your room. Not in your corridor. Not in your quadrant of the building. There's one, maybe two in the whole castle, and they're both guarded like the Holy Grail and smell like mutton stew. You want water? You carry it. From the well. In buckets. Sloshing, splashing, slowly freezing. Then you haul it into the great hall. Dump it into a giant wooden tub that leaks just enough to make you nervous. And light a fire under a cauldron to heat it. By the time the water's warm, your arms no longer function, and your will to live has expired. Then you bathe, while others watch, because privacy, never heard of it. Servants walk by, nobles peek in. The dog joins you. You sit in vaguely murky water, trying to convince yourself that this counts as cleansing, while a breeze from the arrow slits turns your left side into a popsicle. There's no soap. Maybe lye. Maybe ashes. Maybe something someone swears is medicinal, which usually just means hurts more. You scrub with a rag that once had dreams. You rinse. You try not to think about the last 5 people who used this same bath, probably including someone with a visible rash and a lord with commitment issues. When you're done, you're not refreshed. You're emotionally shaken. You're also not clean, just slightly rearranged. That's the best case scenario. Most people, they don't even get that. They wash with a wet cloth and hope. Maybe a splash of rainwater, maybe a river, if they're feeling adventurous and don't mind being half-eaten by fish and judged by passing geese. More commonly, hygiene just means adding more layers. Don't clean it, just cover it. Now, the clothes. You get 1 outfit, maybe 2 if you're filthy rich. It's wool, it's scratchy, it fits like it was designed by a vengeful goat. You wear it all day, every day, until it becomes a second skin made of grease, dust, sweat, and crushed dreams. There is no laundry day. There is only wear it until it disintegrates or stands up on its own. When you do wash it, the process is medieval laundry roulette. You boil water, scrub with lye or ash or whatever substance looks vaguely threatening, and beat it against a rock until the stains give up, or your arms fall off. Then you hang it in the sun, assuming the sun even shows up this decade. The result? Slightly cleaner clothes, still damp, still scratchy, still scented like fermented turnip soup with a finish of despair. Undergarments are optional. Most people go commando under their wool tunics. Those who do wear linens underneath are either trying to show off or covering something they don't want, looked at too closely. Washing underwear is considered a bold political statement, or witchcraft. Your feet? They're a war zone. Most people walk around barefoot or in shoes made from boiled leather, stitched together with thread, willpower, and animal sadness. The shoes offer less arch support than a piece of toast and trap moisture like they're trying to pickle your toes. Your heels crack. Your toenails rebel. Athlete's foot? Please. You'd kill for something that mild. Hair? You don't wash it. You manage it. Maybe a comb. Maybe a knife. Maybe a prayer. Lice live in your scalp full time, rent-free, forming thriving little bug metropolises. Everyone has them. Nobles, peasants, monks, nuns, the guy who rings the bell and smells like soup. It's a shared cultural experience. You scratch, they scratch. Nobody judges. Hands? Washing your hands is suspicious behavior. If you walk around with clean hands, people assume you've been doing something shady, like reading or plotting. Normal hands are grimy, caked with mud, food, soot, untraceable liquids, and the residue of 50 accidental crimes. You might rinse them before a feast if someone's watching. Otherwise, you just wipe them on your tunic, which is also what you wiped your mouth with, and your nose, and possibly a dead bird. Teeth? Not happening. You chew on twigs, maybe rinse with wine or vinegar. Mostly, you let them rot until they exit your face one by one like defeated soldiers. Bad breath is universal. Gums are tragic. Dentists are barbers with extra knives. Smiling is not encouraged. It reveals too much. Body odor? Ubiquitous. Everyone stinks. Not faintly, not slightly, fully, constantly. It's the smell of wood smoke, sweat, poultry grease, wet wool, mildew, and occasional eel. You could bottle it and call it ye old essence of human regret. But why bother? Just breathe deeply and you'll taste it. Perfume exists for the rich, but it's less Chanel No. 5 and more. Here, rub this lump of ambergris on your chest and hope for the best. Sometimes people carry pomanders, little metal balls filled with herbs to hold in front of their face like a portable lie. If you smell lavender, someone rich and desperate is nearby. In short, you're not clean. You're not even in the neighborhood of clean. You are earthy, stained, and aromatically complex, and no one expects otherwise. Because in the medieval castle, personal hygiene is not a right. It's not even a goal. It's a luxury, a superstition, a fever dream of the far-off future. Here, you wear your stink-like armor. You scratch your lice with dignity. And if someone asks when you last bathed, you look them dead in the eye and say, "Why? Who's asking?" Feeling itchy? Developing a cough? Saw a rat sneeze on your porridge? Don't worry. The castle has medical professionals. Kind of. Time to explore medieval healthcare, where the cure is often worse than the plague. And the treatment includes leeches, blood loss, and a priest standing nearby, just in case. You don't feel well. Maybe it was the spoiled eel. Maybe it was the fact you haven't slept in 4 days because of rats and ghosts, and someone retching into a chamber pot with dramatic flair. Whatever it is, you've got a fever, a pounding headache, and one thought echoing through your skull like a doom bell. I need a doctor. No, you really don't. Because in the Middle Ages, the doctor isn't here to help you. He's here to guess what's wrong, apply a treatment that might involve fire, knives, or fermented goat yogurt, and then walk away while muttering about demons and phlegm. Medicine isn't a science yet. It's a theatrical gamble, with your body as the stage and the curtain call usually being your funeral. Let's start with the basics. There are 4 humours inside you: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These are not Pokemon. They are the foundational pillars of medieval health, as believed by educated men who had never seen a germ in their life, but had read some very old, very wrong scrolls. If you're sick, your humours are unbalanced. What caused this imbalance? Could be the moon. Could be your sins. Could be the fact you dared to eat a plum on a Wednesday. The cause doesn't matter. What matters is how to correct it. And that usually begins with bloodletting. Have a headache? Too much blood in your brain. Solution: cut your arm open and let some of it out. Feeling sluggish? Clearly the blood's lazy. Time to wake it up with a few leeches strategically placed on your neck, chest, or forehead, like nature's little vampires with a resume in disappointment. Leeches are the medieval version of Advil, except they suck literally and figuratively. The local barber surgeon, yes, your hairdresser, will pull them out of a jar, slap them on your skin, and tell you to relax. It's not relaxing. It's mildly traumatic and doesn't work. But tradition is tradition. Still feeling off? Time for a poultice. You tell the doctor your leg hurts. He nods wisely, pulls out a loaf of stale bread, mashes it up with lard, honey, herbs, and possibly something that fell on the floor last week, and slaps it directly onto your skin. This is meant to draw out the heat. What it actually draws out is ants, cats, and existential dread. If that fails, it's trepanning time. Got a migraine? Vision blurry? Acting strange? Clearly, your skull is under pressure. The logical solution? Drill a hole in it. Just a small one. With a tool that looks like a corkscrew someone left in a swamp. No anesthesia, no antiseptic. Just you, the doctor, and the sound of your own skull being unzipped. Bonus: if you survive, you get to keep the hole. It's portable. Let's say your illness is internal. Stomach cramps, nausea, general rottenness. This is when the doctor steps back and the priest steps in. Because obviously, you've angered God. Maybe you skipped Mass. Maybe you had an impure thought about the baker's son. Either way, the cure is prayer. Aggressive, panicked, community-wide prayer. While you lie in bed sweating through your only pair of clothes, someone reads psalms over your stomach and sprinkles holy water into your armpits. You don't feel better. But now everyone knows about your rash. Diarrhea? There's a cure. It's called fasting and shame. You're told to stop eating, drink some weak beer, and reflect on your life. If that doesn't work, you'll be prescribed burnt toast ashes mixed with vinegar and mint. You choke it down. You continue to suffer. But now, with a minty aftertaste. If you're really unlucky, someone suggests a laxative. Not the helpful kind, the medieval kind, a purgative, usually made from wild herbs that double as mild poisons. You drink it. You immediately regret everything. The goal is to cleanse your humours. What actually happens is you sit on a bucket for 6 hours, hallucinating the Virgin Mary, while your organs consider quitting. Got a skin infection? Boil? Wound? Great. Let's apply animal fat, bandage it with linen that hasn't been cleaned since the Crusades, and wait for the swelling to develop into something worth naming after you. If the wound turns black, they might try cauterizing it by pressing a red-hot iron directly to the flesh while someone holds you down and hums a hymn. There is no numbing agent, only your screams. If it's the plague, you're done. You know it. Everyone knows it. They slap you in a plague hut, paint a red X on the door, and toss food at you through a slot while praying the miasma. That's bad air. The leading theory in disease transmission doesn't ooze out and ruin dinner. Medicine? There is none. Some people try crushed emeralds. Others try crushed logic. Both fail. Let's visit the apothecary. It smells like herbs, rats, and low expectations. The shelves are lined with jars of crushed beetles, powdered bones, dried bat wings, and mystery dusts. Want a cure for anxiety? Try a blend of saffron, poppy, and powdered ox tongue. Want to fall asleep? Here's some lettuce water. Want to stop coughing? Here's dried frog skin tied around your throat with a prayer. It doesn't work, but at least you'll die fashionably. Women, by the way, are treated differently. Are you sad? Angry? Sick? Clearly, you have a wandering womb. The ancient belief is that your uterus has gone on a spiritual journey through your body, causing havoc. The cure? Fumigation, which involves smoking herbs near your private parts to coax it back into place like some kind of wayward medieval pet. It's as humiliating as it sounds. Mental illness? Doesn't exist. You're either possessed or melancholic. If it's possession, it's time for exorcism, loud chanting, cross-waving, and possibly a light beating. If it's melancholy, you'll be given sad herbs, a lecture, and a long walk through a muddy field to cheer you up. Pregnancy? Good luck. There are midwives, and many of them are brilliant. But they work with what they've got. Intuition, herbal salves, clean cloth if they're lucky, and years of whispered knowledge passed down in kitchens and over washtubs. If the birth goes well, it's a miracle. If it doesn't, it's fate. And if you scream too much, you're accused of being difficult. Or a witch. Teeth? You don't fix them. You remove them, slowly. With pliers made by someone who hates comfort. The local barber surgeon yanks it out while someone holds your arms and you try not to cry on your own shoes. Bleeding? Swelling? Infection? That's tomorrow's problem. For now, just chew on some clove and reflect on your life. So no, medieval medicine isn't comforting. It's not helpful. It's barely survivable. It's a bloody, smoky, onion-scented guessing game where you're as likely to be healed by dumb luck as by anything the doctor does. And even that's optimistic. The best treatment, truly, is not getting sick, which means avoiding bad water, bad air, bad thoughts, and bad people. Stay warm. Eat something green once a month. Sleep next to someone with strong genes. And if you do get sick, pray, but not too loudly. You might disturb the guy with the leeches. Once you've survived an herbal enema and a trepanation consultation from a man named Brother Woundfist, you'll probably want to repent, because in the Middle Ages, Sin causes sickness, and your boil is proof God is mad at you. Let's pray the fever down, or die trying. It's 3 a.m. You're finally drifting off after hours of battling lice, ghosts, cold air that wants you dead, and someone downstairs who has been vomiting rhythmically into a wooden bucket like it's a Gregorian chant. And then it happens. Dong, the church bell. Again, because God doesn't trust you to be unsupervised for more than 3 hours. This is the matins bell, your holy wake-up call. Not for breakfast, not for mercy, for prayers. Because clearly if you're still asleep, you're probably also a sinner. You shuffle to the chapel with your eyes half shut and your soul 3 steps behind. No one talks, no one smiles. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Please let us repent just hard enough to avoid hell, but not so hard we miss the pottage. Because in the medieval castle, religion isn't a comfort blanket. It's a 24/7 surveillance system powered by fear, fire, and the constant suspicion that God is extremely disappointed in you. The local priest, let's call him Father Aldrich, though no one uses his name out loud because names humanize, and this man is an institution, is always watching. He's pale, always sweating. Smells like wax, wine, and years of secret judgments. He never walks anywhere. He glides like a spiritual crow. His sermons are delivered in a tone that suggests he knows what you did last Lent and is still praying about it. Loudly, with emphasis. The sermons begin with scripture and end in a catalogue of eternal doom. No metaphor, no poetry, just full volume lists of sins that lead directly to lakes of fire, worm-ridden pits, and demons with very creative punishments. Lust, eternal boils. Greed, you're buried under molten gold. Lying, a forked tongue and a one-way ticket to the sin sauna. Blinking too long during Mass, that's a grey area, but best to repent just in case. There are 7 deadly sins, and you've probably committed 6 of them, just trying to avoid the 7th. Your thoughts aren't safe. Your dreams aren't safe. Your posture during Vespers isn't safe. Father Aldrich sees it all, and he remembers. Now let's talk confession. You kneel in the freezing chapel, whisper your sins to a man who hasn't made eye contact with joy since 1297, and he tells you how to repent. Usually with prayers, sometimes with a fast, occasionally with a very firm suggestion that you stop smiling at the carpenter's daughter. But here's the twist. Confession is not private. You may whisper, but Agnes heard you. Agnes always hears. She sits in the 3rd pew from the front with her veil drawn tight and her judgment even tighter. No one knows what Agnes actually does, but she's there. Always. At every Mass, every prayer, every holy day. She doesn't blink, she doesn't breathe, but she glares, and you feel it in your spleen. The last time you confessed to stealing an extra onion, Agnes squinted so hard the crops failed, and you have to go to every service. There's Mass, Matins, Lauds, Vespers, feast day observances, confession, penance, midnight vigils, and one weird Wednesday sermon where Father Aldrich yells about the dangers of thinking too hard. Church bells ring so often you no longer differentiate them from your own heartbeat. They ring for prayer. They ring for fasting. They ring for the dead, the nearly dead, and the morally suspicious. But don't worry. Holy days offer a break. Except no, they don't. Holy days, of which there are dozens, are not relaxing. They're just guilt marathons. You fast, kneel for hours, chant in Latin, which no one understands, and beat yourself up emotionally while the choir sings about eternal torment in 4-part harmony. Let's talk about the Bible. You can't read it. It's in Latin. Only the clergy and the very rich can read it. So if Father Aldrich says that God frowns upon shoelaces or the colour green, you nod. You believe. You obey. Because questioning the priest is heresy, and heresy gets you a free trial. By fire. No, really. Heresy equals fire. That's the equation. Question the wrong thing. You're tied to a stake and given a front row seat to your own cremation. It's not subtle. It's not rare. It's the event of the week. People bring food. Someone might juggle. The smell of burning faith lingers in the air, and the message is clear. Don't ask questions, especially if you're a woman. Oh yes. Women with opinions, knowledge, or healing herbs? Witches? Midwives? Suspicious. That old woman who predicted rain? Witch. The young girl who read a word once? Definitely a witch. Trial by water is the go-to test. They throw you into a lake. If you float, you're guilty. If you sink, you're innocent. And dead. It's medieval logic. Don't fight it. Everything is connected to God. Sneeze too loudly? A demon tried to escape. Toothache? Clearly a punishment for that time you skipped evening prayer. Plague outbreak? Someone among you has been morally unwashed. A pig died mysteriously? Satan. Always Satan. And tithing? Mandatory. Doesn't matter if your crops failed or your chickens exploded. The church gets its cut. 1/10 of your earnings, in grain, eggs, or whatever your half-dead donkey can carry, goes straight to Father Aldrich's storehouse of spiritual rent. Still think religion is just a peaceful set of beliefs? Try missing Mass once. People will notice. Agnes will notice. The next day, someone leaves a turnip on your doorstep in the shape of a skull. A child draws a cross on your door in soot, and Father Aldrich starts referring to a certain someone among us during sermons, while never breaking eye contact with you. So you pray, you bow, you kneel until your knees develop their own religion. You chant hymns while wondering if God forgives you for thinking about skipping Vespers to scratch your rash. And still, at the end of every day, with your guilt fully simmered and your soul half raw, you wonder, have I repented enough not to burn forever? Spoiler, probably not. But hey, tomorrow's another holy day. Better set your guilt to maximum. You've confessed, you've been judged, you've survived Mass, guilt, and Agnes's eye lasers, but don't relax, ever. Because just outside these walls is a world full of enemies, angry lords, and plague-ridden horses waiting to be flung over the gate. Time to defend your home, or more realistically, panic. So, you're living in a castle. Stone walls, iron gates, moats, towers, real fortress vibes. You're thinking, at least I'm safe, right? Oh, sweet summer peasant. No, you're not safe. You're a target now. A particularly flammable one, with no exit strategy, and at least one nearby goat already panicking. Because castles weren't built for comfort. They were built for war. And by built, we mean thrown together by masons who were paid in onions and existential dread. The walls, technically tall, also cracked, damp, and home to at least 3 different species of mould. The towers, good vantage points, assuming you don't mind collapsing staircases and loose stones that fall with a sigh and a prayer. The moat smells like boiled despair and is mostly decorative until someone drowns in it. Your guards are supposed to protect you. They stand on the battlements with crossbows, serious faces, and a deep loathing for their job. They wear chainmail so rusted it jingles like haunted keys and smells like damp squirrel. Their shoes are soaked. Their patience is thin. And their greatest weapon is the disappointment they radiate whenever you ask if it's safe outside. Spoiler, it's never safe outside. Because medieval Europe is one bad mood away from a siege. All it takes is a neighbouring lord with a grudge, a cousin with ambitions, or someone losing a goat dispute and boom, your castle's on lockdown. Siege time. Prepare to spend the next few weeks, or months, trapped inside a cold stone hellbox, eating salted disappointment and listening to enemy soldiers shout rude poetry at the walls. Sieges are not fun. They're not quick. They're not strategic dances of noble minds. They're boredom with catapults. The enemy surrounds your castle, blocks supply lines, and tries to starve you out while occasionally launching things over the walls. Rocks, fire, diseased cows, passive-aggressive messages. You huddle in the hall, chewing old leather and regretting every life choice since birth. Let's walk through it. First, they cut off your food. You go from modest rations to rat stew with a bark garnish. Salted meat? Gone. Bread? Mouldy. Cheese? Evolved. Everyone's arguing about who gets to eat the dog. Don't worry, the dog already left. You're drinking beer for hydration and gnawing on your own dignity by day 3. Then come the projectiles. The enemy has trebuchets, mangonels, ballistae, all names that sound impressive until one of them hurls a dead horse over the wall. Yes, that's a real thing. It's called biological warfare, medieval edition. The horse smashes through the roof of the great hall. You were sitting there. Now you're somewhere under what used to be a support beam, rethinking your life. They might throw plague victims next, or manure, or fire. Sometimes fire on manure. The smoke fills the keep. You cough dramatically. So does everyone else. One guy loses his eyebrows. Nobody mourns them. The guards, bless their itchy souls, are doing their best. But their best mostly involves yelling at shadows, pacing with limp swords, and occasionally firing arrows that land 5 feet short because the bowstring is made of hope and goat gut. Morale? Low. Sanitation? Lower. The South Tower now doubles as both a lookout point and a bathroom. No one talks about it. Let's say the enemy breaches the outer wall. This happens a lot faster than anyone expects, because the mortar is made of spit and good intentions. Suddenly, it's chaos. Horns blaring. Arrows flying. Someone trips over a chicken. The knights scramble to put on armour they haven't cleaned since the last crusade, and charge out to battle like rusted tin cans filled with regret. And here's the thing. You're not trained for this. You're not a warrior. You're not brave. You were promised a bed, some mead, and maybe a lute player if the budget allowed. Now you're hiding behind a barrel, while 2 men in metal pyjamas try to murder each other with halberds and heated insults. Someone screams, "Boil the oil!" And now you're carrying a pot of literal boiling oil up the stairs, spilling some on your own foot while a squire yells at you for doing it wrong. You reach the battlements, pour it through a murder hole, and accidentally hit a sheep. The enemy cheers. The sheep dies confused. Then the stairs collapse. Not from combat, from age. They're made of wood. Rotting wood. You tumble down, sprain your ankle, and crawl back to the hall where someone's sobbing, someone's praying, and someone's making pigeon soup out of desperation and one very unlucky bird. In the corner, the guy next to you has trench foot, or something that used to be a foot, but now looks like a damp pastry. He takes off his boot, and half the foot comes with it. No one reacts. You all just nod silently like, yeah, that seems fair. Now let's say, against all odds, the enemy retreats. Victory? Not really. You won in the sense that you're still alive, but the castle's half rubble, the well is suspiciously chunky, and you haven't pooped in private since last Tuesday. Your skin smells like fear and onions. The walls are cracked. The roof leaks. And worst of all, you know they'll be back. Because in a medieval castle, peace is just the silence between disasters. The guards return to their posts. They don't celebrate. They don't smile. They sit in their towers, chew cold beans, and wait for the next round. You pass them on your way to bed, and they give you the same look they always do, part pity, part constipation, all exhausted. And as you lie back in your straw mattress, surrounded by smoke, lice, bruises, and distant echoes of trauma, you realize something important. You are not safe. The castle didn't protect you. It just concentrated the danger and gave it stone walls. and you're inside, waiting to see what kills you first. The next siege, the trench foot, or the pigeon stew you really should not have eaten. Sweet dreams. Somehow, you made it. You weren't trampled, skewered, boiled, or eaten by your own morale. But the sun is up now, and so is the smell. It's morning in the castle. Let's find out what's left of you, your dignity, and that one rat who made it through the siege just fine. You wake up, not gently, not gradually. You wake up like someone falling out of a tree and landing on a broken spine made of straw, damp wood, and a hard philosophical question about your life choices. Every joint in your body cracks like a bundle of wet twigs. Your eyelids stick together. Your mouth tastes like something boiled in sin. It's morning in the castle. You survived the night, which is technically an achievement, but emotionally feels like a loss. The first thing you notice is the smell. The fire's out. The pottage has congealed into a sentient brick. Somewhere nearby, a turnip has reached the peak of its fermentation arc and evolved into something new, a smell so powerful it could be used in warfare. The air is thick with wood smoke, wet wool, expired goat breath, and the deep, soul-clenching funk of human persistence. You try to sit up. Your back refuses. Your spine crunches. Your hips cry. Your knees, which have been through things they will never speak of, make a noise like someone stepping on a sack of bird bones. Every movement is a negotiation with gravity and regret. Your blanket slides off. It is damp. It was never warm. It is heavier now than when you fell asleep, possibly due to moisture, existential sadness, or both. Beneath it, your clothes, still the same ones from yesterday, and the day before, and the week before, cling to your skin like desperate exes. The lice are awake. They are thriving. They greet the dawn by throwing a small party in your armpit. You scratch. They scatter. You scratch harder. They unionize. There is no winning this war. Across the room, someone groans. Someone else coughs, long and wet, with notes of plague and disappointment. A baby starts crying. A dog farts. A guard snores like a dying walrus. Someone throws up softly into a wooden bucket. You're not sure if it's the same person from last night or a new contestant in this horrifying game show of bodily sounds. You stand, sort of. You lurch upright, supported only by sheer willpower and one very questionable support beam. Your toes squish into the straw-covered floor. It is cold. It is damp. It is moving. You hope it's just beetles and not that rat again. Now it's time for your morning routine. Step 1. Fetch water. This requires exiting the castle through a drafty stone corridor, stepping into a courtyard that smells like failure, and trudging to the well with a bucket and a prayer. The ground is mud, or manure, or both. You stop caring. You just walk through it and accept that your feet will never be clean again. You wait in line behind 3 servants, a nun, and a man who may or may not be part of the actual household. You draw the water, which is icy, slightly green, and full of things that move when you look too closely. You don't drink it. You stare at it, then pour it over your hands like it'll help. It doesn't. Back inside, it's time for breakfast, also known as the same thing you ate last night but now colder, lumpier, and vaguely accusatory. A bowl of pottage, the same one, just refreshed with an extra root vegetable or whatever was scraped off the pantry floor, is slapped in front of you by a cook who hasn't blinked since the Second Crusade. You chew, slowly, painfully. The bread is still the same rock of barley and spite. The beer is still thin, warm, and sad. You try not to think about what's floating in it. A bit of hair, maybe yours, maybe not. It's too early for existential spirals, so you gulp it down and pretend it helped. Someone nearby is praying. Someone else is already confessing. Loudly. You hear the word sheep and choose not to follow up. You walk back through the hall. The fireplace is dead. The coals glow faintly, like the last flicker of your hope. The walls sweat. The air is damp enough to chew. A guard limps past you. He smells like boiled cabbage and open regret. He nods. You nod. This is affection. You return to your chamber. The candle's burned out. The lice are having brunch. Your blanket is colder than your emotions. You sit on the straw and look at your hands. They're cracked, soot-stained, smell like onions. Your fingernails contain secrets. You don't ask. And it hits you. You made it. You lived through a full medieval night. The pottage didn't kill you. The rats didn't take your face. The ghosts didn't drag you into the crypt. The fire didn't consume the hall. The priest didn't accuse you of heresy. The lice didn't hollow you out like a tree. The bucket vomiting contest didn't escalate into something biblical. You are alive. But at what cost? Your back is bent. Your stomach is questioning your loyalty. Your soul has been hollowed out and filled with salted despair. You have not known warmth in days. Your blanket hates you. Your clothes have become a second, smellier skin. You have lice. Agnes glared at you. The bread drew blood. And your one remaining hope is that someone, somewhere, invented plumbing before you have to poop again. And now, a small voice inside you says, "Wouldn't it be fun to stay another night?" No, it wouldn't. You've experienced the full medieval castle package. The drafty misery, the chamber pot ballet, the cuisine that actively resents you, the spiritual surveillance, the war games, the smell, the ghosts, the cook who looks like she could murder with just a ladle and the right motivation. You've done it. Don't push your luck, because the castle has a rhythm, a long, unyielding loop of discomfort, labour, judgment, malnutrition, pest control, and religious dread. Every day is a repeat of the last, just slightly colder and somehow more haunted. You'll never know peace, or a warm bath, or a snack that doesn't include bones, or a full night's sleep without fear of being crushed by a ceiling beam, a pig, or your own collapsing sense of time. So congratulations. You've lived through the worst sleepover in history. You've earned your badge in suffering. Your reward? You get to leave. Go. Run. Limp if you must. Crawl into the modern world and never look back. And if someday you find yourself missing this place, the walls, the firelight, the screaming monk, the bread that doubles as a weapon, just remember, there's still pottage waiting, and it knows where you live. The end. Or rather, your beginning. Because now that you've spent a night in a medieval castle, everything in your real life, the heating, the fridge, the mattress, the blessed, beautiful plumbing, feels like a miracle. Go hug your thermostat, kiss your water filter, light a scented candle and whisper, "Thank you, modernity. You've been through the darkness, the dampness, the turnips. Don't ever go back, not even for the pig that dances." And that, dear traveller through medieval misery, brings us to the end of your castle nightmare. You've braved lice-infested beds, soup that bites back, holy judgment, trench-footed guards, and the haunting realization that medieval people lived every day like it was a survival challenge sponsored by discomfort. If you made it to the end without scratching imaginary itches or apologizing to your plumbing, congratulations. You're stronger than you look. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this descent into historical horror and existential pottage, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Not the chapel one. We've all had enough of those. But the one that lets you know when we post more cozy nightmares disguised as history. And drop a comment below. Let us know. Which part of medieval castle life broke you first? Was it the toilet? The bread? Or Agnes? Either way, you survived. And that's more than most chickens in this castle can say. See you in the next episode, or in purgatory, whichever comes first.